3, 2, 1.
You need a sound effect.
All right. We'll open the meeting with a pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Kylie, please.
Newman.
Yes.
Merritt.
Yep.
Keller.
Yes.
Mauser.
Yes.
Brown.
Here. Looking for approval of the agenda.
Chair, I'd like to add one thing, and it'd be B, and it's gonna be commission communications. Commissioner communications, it would be. Can I get approval? Support? Okay.
Commissioner or commission?
Communications. Commission communications, either way.
Not comments.
Right.
B.
B. Do we have?
Was that a motion? Did you move that so you support?
Yes.
Then I'll support.
Okay.
I want to make sure where we were at.
Okay. Motion to add item B, Commissioner Communication to the agenda. Motion by Mark, seconded by Andy. I would now look for approval of the amended.
Who can make that motion?
Support.
Motion by Andy, seconded by Mark, to accept the amended agenda. Anything further? I guess we can do this voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
The only time you can do that, we'll probably, one of us is going to.
Well, I can do it anytime.
You can do it anyway, but.
I kind of can. But I understand. Any conflicts of interest? Hearing none. Public comment. Kylie, would you please read the rules for public comment?
Any person may make an advanced appointment with the board regarding road commission topics for a regular or special meeting in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. If an appointment is made, the topic will be an agenda item. The following applies to public comments. Please state his or her name and address. Topic must be relevant to the road commission. Individuals are allowed to speak once for up to 3 minutes on a single topic, which may be extended by the chair. A group addressing the board requires a designated spokesperson who may speak up to 10 minutes. The board will not act on any item from the public that is not on the agenda. For remote access users, if you wish to participate in public comment, please raise your hand through Zoom. For call-ins, we will unmute callers if you wish to speak. Say yes.
I have one Dan Olson that would like to talk.
All righty, let's go ahead.
Okay, Dan, you're able to talk.
Hi, this is Dan Olson, 14795 Mallard Drive, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Mission Hills Homeowners Association. Thanks again, gentlemen, for coming out this week. We appreciate your visit and having an opportunity to kind of show you firsthand what's going out there on Bluff Road. And as in advance of your meeting tonight, I just wanted to make 2 comments for your consideration. The first comment is, as you're doing your asset management plan tonight, we would be requesting that you consider allocating funds towards the Bluff Road issue in your current asset management plan and what you're doing tonight, so that matters can be addressed on an ongoing basis and that those funds are set aside for that purpose. And one thing that we particularly noticed during that site visit was the damage on the south end of Bluff Road where the road closure is. There's, some of the erosion has quite clearly entered into the road right of way. And that may be something that needs to be addressed sooner than other aspects of the road to prevent all access from the south being basically cut off. And we appreciate the consideration to allow the lot owners some limited access through that south area. But our concern would be that if need be in the near distant future, even as early as this winter, that south area may need to be addressed and fortified just to prevent further damage and actual erosion from the roadway that would prevent that access from the south. So I just wanted to throw that out for consideration and request that you give that due consideration tonight. And then the other issue I just wanted to address, and it may be a point of clarification, or perhaps maybe you can elaborate at some point in the meeting or even now, is there was some comments made, or just maybe general observations, that certain funds would not be eligible for the rehabilitation or whatever we want to call the repairs to Bluff Road. Clearly it would be, at least heavy maintenance and rehabilitation, but that there may not be certain funds eligible for that. And in particular, and maybe I misunderstood this, but that millage funds would not be available for use for any eventual repairs of Bluff Road. And I'm a little confused by that, because just looking at your current projects, you have a 5 mile to Hammond, the 5 mile Hammond Road to Holiday is pretty heavy maintenance, and that's a millage fund project for 1.1 million. And then there's several other projects that you have listed: Bowers Harbor Road, East Shore Road, the Island View Road project, and also a project on Old Mission, that are both all sizable projects that were millage funds were used. And maybe it's just a confusion over terms and things like that, but I think there was some representations made that millage funds can't be used for new construction, and that what might occur at Bluff Road would be considered new construction, but it is an existing road. And there's been comments by the Road Commission. I'm citing a June 11th, 2020 article that appeared in the Record Eagle, and it discussed kind of the source of funding for roads, and highlighting the fact that the money that's derived from property taxes for repairs can only be used for existing roads and bridges, and we understand that. But that also there was a statement made that finally local millage funds are used exclusively for what's called, in civil engineering parlance, capital preventive maintenance, keeping a road in fair to good condition to increase longevity, and quote, heavy maintenance where the road is broken down and completely rebuilt. And the comments went on to say the recent road work on Brimley Road between Garfield and Keystone are examples of heavy maintenance project paid with mileage funds. And that was a statement made by Mr. Klaczynski. So I just looking for some clarification on that funding issue as to whether or not millage funds can be set aside for addressing Bluff Road or not, in light of the fact that, they're currently being used for similar type projects where we're breaking on the road and doing significant rehabilitation and those public comments. And that's all I had. If you can perhaps respond to that, or at least take that into consideration. I was just looking for clarification on that funding issue, if you're able to respond to that.
I think it'd be appropriate that because there is some confusion, and this is going to require some detailed information, that it be handled with the manager to communicate with the folks out there, the particulars of it, rather than
How those funds are.
Yeah. I mean, how long we've been here, we're still trying to figure it out.
Right. Basically breaking it down and why.
Right.
It was not millage that was referred to, it was motor transportation funds.
Motor transportation.
There's a limit of how much we can spend on local projects for MTF.
Out of MTF funds.
Right.
Correct.
But it was nothing should have been said about millage funds being restricted for that. Because we do a lot of heavy maintenance, but for MTF, we have requirements that must be met.
Well, that's Act 51. It has restrictions. It kind of holds our hands on what we can allocate.
Can and can't do.
But I think that if you just communicate to that to them, rather than us try to give an answer this evening.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably the way to approach it is probably to say, these are the funds that can be used for this, and
Right,
And
let it go
I
from
can
there.
call him.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
I
okay.
mean, just a
You
real
have
quick,
one more? Okay,
real quick,
Oh.
just real quick. For example, 3 Mile Road, okay, or long stretches of road, when people see that one long ribbon of pavement, do not realize that it's come from 3 or 4 different sources to get it done.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and
and can only be spent in those areas.
You know, right, and our
Yeah,
management team
yeah.
works very hard to get those things lined up time-wise and with the agencies and everything, to get that contiguous section. But it's not like we go put that ribbon of asphalt down, throw up the stripes because we got the money for the whole road. It
Right.
could be state funds, MTF, it could be grants, it could be
Federal grant,
local, and whatever.
Got another comment.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, Mike, you're able to speak now? Let's see. You're gonna have to unmute, Mike.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sorry, my name is Mike Catry and I live on 11253 Lakeshore. We have a committee that has the same kind of concerns as Mr. Olson has related to Lakeshore Drive. And I know we've sent a list of our concerns in. Our primary concern, well, one of our primary concerns is that the committee consider putting Lakeshore Drive on as one of its potential projects for the upcoming year because of its quality. And I won't get into detail, and I'm sure you're fully aware of that. And I hope we can have some discussions down the road about how best to do that. And that's the extent of my comment. Thank you.
Are we all set now? Or do you have anybody else?
I think we're good.
That's it? Okay. All right.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, there is one more.
There is one more? All right.
Hello,
Yeah, David, you're on.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm having a little difficulty I haven't participated in any of your meetings before, and I apologize, I did not hear Dan's comments, who is also a neighbor of mine. I am a homeowner in Mission Hills, and so I just wanted to express just a couple things, probably to piggyback what Dan has said or expressed. You know, it looks like, you know, we're moving towards some type of a, you know, agreement in regards to access to our properties on Bluff Road in the area that is closed off presently, which is good news. But I think that there needs to be a real urgency to address preserving the present, you know, existing road that right now, you know, could very well be damaged in a very significant way over the next few or several months due to water levels and wave action. And so I just really would like to see the, you know, commission address this. And, you know, we know, and I know that right now we can't fix the problem and get the road open, okay, for a variety of reasons at presently. But we do need to prevent further damage. The road literally could fall right into the bay, especially in that area that's on the south side that is presently closed off. And, you know, if that happens, you know, we've got huge issues. So there needs to be some type of a plan to address this urgently to prevent that from happening. That's my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Just to the north of that, where the cable's hanging out.
Oh.
All set? Okay. All right. Item 6. Asset management plan and project schedule.
Okay, one thing, as part of that comment, assuming he's still listening, this is not a place where you guys can make a decision. This is a working session.
Right.
We cannot make decisions tonight. We are only here, so make sure we understand that, and then it can be discussed. If we need to, we'll add it to the next board meeting.
Correct.
So, we have put together a presentation for the education of the commissioners as well as for the public. We plan on putting this up on our website. And we hope that it becomes an educational tool for future commissioners also to understand the requirements we have. I'm gonna leave it up to Joe to run through the PowerPoint. And then after that, Larry is gonna show us some, the new software that we have and how it's working out for us already. I would ask that at least through Joe's PowerPoint here, we kind of hold the questions, jot them down. Because a lot of it, because there's so much information, may be covered as he continues through the project, and then we can answer any questions at the end of the PowerPoint.
No pressure, Joe.
No pressure. No. So we're here to kind of work through the way we approach asset management and the steps we take to work through project selection, monitoring our roads, and make sure that we're working towards the best possible condition of our roads within the funding we have. You know, and I'm the one giving the presentation, but Wayne, myself, Brad, Larry, and our field inspection staff, it's something that we all look to for guidance when we're out selecting roads, looking at roads, and it's something that drives most of the decisions we make to present to you for what is our project selection for the year. So just some quick stats on our right-of-way asset inventory. About 1,018 miles of roads, 21 bridges now, with 137. So we gained a bridge. Of our total primary roads, 253 miles, 765 miles of local roads. Some of it's in the urban district, which is treated differently for Act 50 and the way we get funds. There's 29 traffic signals that we maintain, 229 culverts that we have in inventory. What's that? 929, sorry.
We lost a whole lot.
Yeah, I lost a whole lot. As I stated, it's an undercount. As we do projects and we're out looking for things, we oftentimes find buried culverts or things that have like disappeared over the years. So when we went through and did the inventory, not all of it was apparent. So as we find things, we inventory and put them in. As we upgrade roads and do projects, they're put in. So it's going to be a while before we get a full picture of where all of that is, but it's a significant number and it's better than nothing. And then on our sign inventory, we have 9,856 signs, and those are updated. So some of this, it's a continuous effort to keep up the database and the assets that we have out on the road. Anytime you do something and change something, you have to go in and record that. So every time we are doing a project or doing a repair, we're keeping track of that and putting it in our inventory. So that way we know what we have, what condition it was in, what it's made out of, even with the signs, what direction they're facing, what kind of posts they're on, how many bolts hold it up. So it's a big task to get everything 100% accurate. Just kind of something we're working toward. There's more to get put in there. As we have time and interns in the summer, we run around and collect items that we don't have and spaces that we know we're undercounting or missing. And then kind of to run through our asset management plan history, it started in 2013, and in 2013, 60% of our roads were a PASER of 4 or less. So we were 60% of our roads were in that poor condition, needing structural repair. And the asset management plan, it was created to utilize pavement preservation techniques and maximize our investments on our existing roads. That was the basis for it, was to come up with a plan on how to improve. And some of that, it's 2013 millage, and then the subsequent passage of the 2016 millage. And then in this year, the millages are back on the ballot for 2020. In our asset management plan from 2013, it's carried through to now, 2018. The goal is stated of 80% of all our roads in fair to good condition in 20 years. That's something that as we talk and look at the way our plan is functioning, working within our constraints and the budgets that we have, that's probably a goal that is quite lofty. And something we've been talking about internally is when we have an asset management plan, there's an acronym that you use, and it's SMART. It's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. So if you set a goal that is unattainable, your asset management plan doesn't work. And you have to have timelines to see if you're going to achieve your goal. So with the goal of 80% of all roads in good and fair condition, if we were to project out using asset management plan like techniques to its fullest, if you can't achieve that goal, we need to review and change it and come up with something that is attainable. The last formal update for our plan was 2018. Part of that is the Transportation Asset Management Council came out, and we have to submit plans now to the state, and the state has to approve it as part of the 2015 passage of the fuel tax. So there's some measures that we have to send to the state, and it changes our asset management plan a little bit. They have kind of a specific format they want, and ours isn't necessarily in that format. But we've kind of held off doing any updates to the plan, knowing some of the things that we have to fix and that we have to change the format. So it's going to get updated probably this winter into next year. It'll be submitted as a plan, through the board for approval. With the updates, we'll go through what's changed, that kind of stuff. And we're required by the state to submit it to the TAMC in 2022. I think with COVID this year, some of those dates have been pushed out. So our due date is a little later, but we should be done with it long before that.
Before you go on, next slide, just a comment. The goal, when that goal was set, for everybody that may not have been here, that we struggled with too good in 20 years. We went back and round about that because that isn't possible, because it moves out and you can't snap it in time. So we discussed at the time was achieve 80% of all roads in fair to good condition as a measurable level without putting in too good in 20 years. Do you see the difference?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we discussed, but we stuck it out there for 20 years, but it's never made sense, but we knew it.
Yeah.
We did it, so.
And I think we can work towards attainable goals that achieve the same, a similar type of goal, but roll them in.
20 years.
Yeah.
You can't put a certain set, because it doesn't stop there. It's an evolution. It's constantly eroding. It's constantly depreciating. But we can achieve a certain level, and that's, we didn't want to do good in 20 years, but.
So just kind of an overview of what is asset management. The broad definition is management of investments on behalf of others. That can encompass all kinds of things, personal finance. It all kind of is the same concept in a way. But as it relates to road commissions, a wordy definition is a systematic process of maintaining, upgrading, and operating assets, combining engineering principles with sound business practice and economic rationale. I won't read the rest. It's quite wordy. But what it boils down to is the longest life at the lowest overall cost. And something that we hear thrown out there quite a bit is asset management is a mix of fixes. So you have a large toolbox of different fixes to incorporate into upkeep of your road network. And those range from crack fill, something we haven't tried, which is fog seals, slurry seals that aren't, they're be considered a step down from a chip seal. Chip seals, our overlay projects, our chip and overlay projects, something that we've been doing the last few years to try and get more benefit out of our overlays. Mill and fills, something we don't really do that often around here because we don't have a whole lot of curb and gutter. But where our roads are curb and gutter, those fixes make sense versus just plain overlays. And then into our crush and shapes and possibly full on reconstructs if the road needs it. The process, you start with the concept, needing an asset management plan. That was done in 2013. So we've kind of moved on from that step and it's not really included, but you define your plan and come up with how you're going to achieve it. And you work on your project list, which is executing it. When you're done executing it, you go back, you evaluate the performance of it and control measures. And then step 5 is you determine fixable shortfalls. Where has your plan missed? What can you do to improve it? And then you go back and you redefine your plan and work through the process. So it's a continuous cycle of evaluation of what you're doing. Next slide. And some of the things that define our direction for our asset management plan, there's state law, which has a lot to say about where we get funds. That's Act 51, but there's a lot more in Chapter 247. But the big one is Act 51. And then there's Public Act 283 of 1909, which has a segment in it that's called County Road Law. And it defines some of the things that we have to do as a road commission. Within those is the TAMZ, which is newer in the early 2000s. It came about, and then it was updated again with a couple public acts. So they've got guidance in there for what we should be achieving and rules where if we submit an asset management plan to them that's approved and we're not maintaining that plan and we're not showing that we can achieve our goals, that they can dictate where our money gets spent to start attaining those goals. So it's kind of a big deal to make sure that we're working towards attainable goals and showing how we're getting there.
Who is they that would be controlling?
It is a council. It's the Transportation Asset Management Council. And Wayne, do you know if that's appointed or is that through MDOT?
No, those are appointed by the governor.
So it's not MDOT, it's its own.
No, MDOT has to work with them also.
Oh, political.
Some of the other ways we're defined is we have the millage here and there's language in the millage and where we can spend road funding from that millage. Other things we look to is board policy, which is, part of our asset management plan is that, when we set goals, that's kind of guidance for us. And then a list of adopted policies on how we reconstruct streets when and where applicable, geometrics of streets and roads that's in our standards. So there's our development standards and our new road standards. So we look to those for a lot of guidance on what we're going to do. There's procedures for cost sharing on projects and the budget that's set for cost share projects. How we go about local match contributions when we're asked to partner on projects and those splits for the matching funds. So that gives us kind of the bumpers in the bowling alley to keep us, in the lane to hit the pins. And then I put a link here, which is to the County Road Association. And under that link, there's a list of county road laws that pertain to road commissions. So there's quite a list in it. I don't believe they have everything that's in the state laws because some of it applies to MDOT, some of it applies to us. So they cherry pick the things that are more towards road commissions. So when we're doing our process and working through and selecting roads, we have kind of a list of tools we use. We have software, Roadsoft, which is a GIS-based system that is free from the state and we have to use when we rate our roads. So when we go out and do our phaser ratings to get the conditions of our roads, we use that software. We're exploring and moving into the Esri ArcGIS suite, which is another GIS software that has more capabilities than Roadsoft for us. They have partners with them, like City Works, which is something we've discussed, is moving to City Works for work order management, a whole host of asset management tools that can come with it, and different ways of looking at data. And then, you know, one tool we use is work order review. Where are the crews spending the most time? Or what are the particular work orders that are being sent out on these roads as we evaluate them? I put Excel, Microsoft Excel. It does a lot of work for us for calculations and looking at things. It's always there. MERL, which is another state program that comes through the Center for Training and Technology, that runs our cost estimates for projects. It's a database that's used that has previously bid estimates. You can look to see what other parts of the state are paying for certain items and get a feel for how much your project is going to cost based off of a database of as bid pricing. So you're always a little bit behind, but it gives you a feel for where you're headed. And you can split it by region and section and year and quarter, and there's all kinds of ways to look at it. And then Field Manager, which is a software we use for out in the field when we're doing construction. It's our inspectors' daily reports. It's the items that are posted. It's materials tracking. When we do federal aid jobs, it's wage tracking. So as we have a construction project and we're getting 3,000 tons of gravel on the job, we have a testing company that tests it, makes sure that it passes all the sieve analysis and it's a quality material. We can put that in, and as the inspectors are working through and they're placing gravel, it'll flag us when we've run out of material and we need to get it retested. So it's a way for us to track construction, and it gives us cost estimates, and it all goes back to what Bill does for his reporting. Another tool is Experience. It's picking the correct fix on the road when you evaluate a road to see what fix you should be doing. It's having looked at roads and fixed roads. So that's something where oftentimes as a group, we go out and look at things, discuss the different scenarios and the different things we can be doing to these roads to improve it. Part of it is applying the correct fix at the correct time. Not doing a fix that is beyond that road's ability to be upkept. So you could do something that for the short term ups the rating, but in a few years you're right back to where you were. So that's part of picking the correct fix and applying it at the correct time. We talk to others. We talk to our neighboring counties and what they're trying, what they're doing, different chip seal techniques they're using, different oils they're using, how it's performing, trying different fog seals on shoulders of roads to keep them up to shape. The chip and overlay things that we've been trying, those were other counties tried those also, and there was dialogue between them on how it performed, to decide if we wanted to try that. And then we go to trainings. Wayne's a member of NACE and is involved in that quite a bit. We go to CRA trainings where they have trainings on preventative maintenance for asphalt, trainings on how to evaluate an asphalt that they supply for you with a mix design and knowing whether it's a good mix design or not. And then the Center for Training and Technology has a whole host of asset management, pavement, inspection, trainings, things like that, stuff to watch for when we're out there doing construction. And there's the TAMAC. They put on asset management conferences. So you can go and listen to what others are doing, how they're using their asset management plan, and some guidance on how to make it work. We move into evaluation. So we have condition rating of roads. That's very important when it comes to determining how what you're doing on the road is working. You need to go back and look and see if what you've done is performing. Distress evaluation, looking at the specific distresses that you're trying to fix. Is it structural failure? Is it just regular thermal cracking? What are the adjacent conditions? Is it lack of ditches or poor drainage that's causing some failure in that structural issue? Or is it just age? So it's a kind of an all-encompassing sort of view of the road. And then evaluating past project performance, which is part of the PASER system, but we go back out and look at those and we keep rating records and those go in our database. And we can look to see how that road is performing compared to the average degradation curve to see if we've done something that is better than a different practice. A lot of that takes time. You need several years worth of ratings in order to learn from what you've done. So it can be 10 years before you get a full picture of how that performed. And now we've got some other data collection methods that we're starting to roll out and utilize. Excellent. Asset plan strategies. Some of these strategies, there's the worst first, best last. And oftentimes that is a reaction to complaints on roads. When your network is in poor condition, it's hard to skip fixing a bad road and do maintenance on a good road. And we get a lot of calls on why we do things like that. But it is a strategy. And you're trying to save every road. And it's understanding it's a reaction when you don't have enough money to fix every road. But one thing that we do here is we look at it best first, worst last. And I hijacked this analogy from a training I went to. And I thought it was a very good explanation of what we do. And it's you own 2 hen houses and want to keep them. One is good, one is bad, but both need a new roof. You can only afford one roof. Which do you replace? So if you fix the bad hen house, you may end up with 2 bad hen houses because the roof on the good one failed. And then it's a strategy which recognizes sometimes you must let some things go. But in the long run, the question becomes, are you really letting everything go? Some things stay bad, but you're upkeeping what is good. And you're protecting your most valuable assets. And our most valuable assets are those roads that are in good condition. And then it's also acknowledging that if you try to save everything, you could lose everything. Now, that's a very broad statement. You won't lose everything because if you're fixing bad roads, you're always going to have something that's in good condition, but you're never going to get ahead of the game. This is something we use in Roadsoft. It's our strategy tool, which we can go in, put in known budget numbers, projected project costs for specific projects that we know are coming up. So if we have federal aid jobs that are on the books and in a specific year, we will put in what we know the fixed category that road's going to be in for that year. And as we put in those project costs, it kind of we can look at what funds are left to incorporate into the rest of our asset management plan. So this is a way to run the budget numbers, try different scenarios, and plan out your future goals for where you should be spending your money. And it's got preventative maintenance, rehabs, which are the overlays, and then reconstructs. So what it does is, if we know we have a federal aid job that's an overlay or a crush and shape, in the year that is, we can put funds in there and it'll help us decide if we should be focusing on everything else on preventative maintenance or if we have enough room left to be doing some other crush and shapes along with it. It's a projection and the categories are broad. So that way we're not over defining the plan. If we try to put in everything we do on every road or every type of fix we do, there's a lot of overlap, and the software knows that if this road's in this condition, it's always going to pick the cheapest fix to apply to that section of road, but it might not be appropriate. So what we've done is we've narrowed it down to just a few fixes with preventative maintenance, rehabs, and reconstructs, and picked numbers that are sort of on the higher end, 3/4 of the way there, to kind of just give us a broad budget where we should be projecting to be. And it stops it from always saying that any road that's a 6 needs chip seal, because it's not giving you a realistic picture of what you should be doing. But it does help us look to see if what we're doing is predicted to have a measurable impact. Excellent. Within this, we can run different strategies. So this would be from today's condition rating if we did nothing. So if we just stopped doing construction projects and maintenance projects, this is what we would expect our road network to start looking like. Next slide. So this would be if we elected to do the worst first kind of scenario where we didn't do any crack seal, no chip seals, no preventative maintenance, and we stuck with overlays and crush and shapes. So you can see that, yeah, you've got good roads. Your fair roads go down. There's an improvement in the system, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But if you run this out 20 years, it gets kind of meaningless when you get out that far, but it can kind of give you a projection. But what you'll see is that good and fair category starts to fluctuate and the fair category starts to go up, because after a while, the roads start falling off faster than you can fix them. So in the short term, it's okay, but if you start to really project out in the long term, you'll start to see that the good roads start to get bad, and you kind of get a divergence of the two. Next slide. And this is the mix of fixes strategy, where you use all the tools that you have in your toolbox to maintain your roads. That good category becomes quite good. You start to get less fair roads because you're doing maintenance on the good roads and you're keeping them in good condition. And that allows you to take those poor roads and use funds to bring them up to the good condition. Whereas you'd be doing a lot of overlays of roads that are in that fair condition to get them up to good, and they'd be falling back to fair. But this way, if you keep your good roads good longer, it actually allows you to have more funds available for those bigger projects. This is a typical degradation curve of an asphalt surface. It's kind of a canned curve that you get from software in a lot of different places that present it. This can fluctuate on a lot of conditions, you know, your subgrade soils, the actual structural build of the road. So it's just a guideline.
Magic engineering stuff that I won't ever understand.
Yeah. So in the good category, your preventative maintenance is your crack seal. It doesn't necessarily increase the rating of your road, but what it does is it keeps the rating of your road long. As you fall down the curve, you can see that the cost per mile goes up. And as you start to fall into those other categories or other ratings of roads, it starts to cost exponentially more. We have the critical distress point on there, and it's something that we always talk about. And it's because that's the point where you've gone from the ability to do preventative maintenance and you have to do something structural to the road. It's where it started to fail structurally, and the cost to fix the structure of the road is much more than upkeep. That PASER rating of 4 is kind of a magic number where there's difference between if it's a fair or if it's a poor road, but it's defined by the Asset Management Council as a poor road, and we use the term poor road because it needs structural improvement. It doesn't mean that you're going to get complaints on the road, but it needs something more than just a chip seal at that point in time. Next slide. This is standard preventative maintenance cycle on that curve. So you'll see the crack seal performed and extends the service life, which is pushing that point to the critical point of where it's that structural rating out. And then we perform a chip seal, it moves it out more. I've got the second chip seal application in hash because it doesn't always happen. You can do it, it does work. But one thing that nobody's ever really kind of studied is how many chip seals can you do on a road before you create a problem. I would think that if you chip seal the road too many times, you would start to get rutting issues, flushing issues with the emulsion coming through. So there is a limited number of times you could perform that fix and get the curve as it's drawn on this. So
how far out are you looking at doing a chip seal on this? Because we had a conversation the other day, and this is not looking like what you told me.
No, so this would be the typical, the way we used to do things. And I say used to it, we still do this in some applications because there is benefit to the road. But this is, as soon as you see your first sign of a crack in a road, you start crack filling. When your road hits a PASER rating of a 7, you apply a chip seal and you push that curve out, and then you start to get more cracks. So in a few years, when it's back down to a 7, you do that second crack fill and chip seal, and you're 20 years out, and then you do a mill and fill. And and you kind of do the process again. But something that, the next slide, what we're talking about doing and working on our new roads, the ones that we've crushed and shaped. So roads that we've crushed and shaped, there's a lot of information out there that if you do an early preventative maintenance, such as chip seal on a road, instead of extending the life of that road, say 5 years, you're more in the 10-year category. So early application of a chip seal it's the same cost, whether you do it after 5 years or if you do it after 1 year, but you're getting twice the life. So it's got more benefit. It's not always popular because a nice smooth brand new asphalt is nice to drive down and then we put a chip seal on it. But one of the ways of looking at it is as your road degrades, something that does degrade it, and we acknowledge it, is as it weathers, you lose some of the volatile organic compounds that are in your asphalt emulsion and they become brittle. And that's where you start to see that thermal cracking because it loses its flexibility. When you do an early chip seal, it locks that in because it's not exposed to the elements. So it's like painting wood siding on a house. You're protecting that wood, and our asphalt is that structure. And the chip seal is more like a stain or a seal to protect it. So there's Minnesota did a 15-year study where they looked at a 15-mile segment of road, and for the first 5 years, they chip sealed a mile of road. And every year on that 15 miles, they took core samples, put them in a press, measured the flexural strength of the asphalt by pulling on it to break it apart. And they found that the most bang for your buck for applying a chip seal to hold that flexural strength of that asphalt was in years 1 and 2. The strength of the asphalt after 10 years was almost identical to the strength of the asphalt the first year they put it down. And by the end of the study, 15 years later, the control section that didn't receive any chip was falling apart and gone and needed a brand new resurface. And they were still just doing routine crack fill maintenance on the first half. This is something that Berry County does. If you look at where counties have the most good roads in the state of Michigan, they're #1. And this is something they've been doing for, I believe, about 20 years on their primary roads. Whenever they do a major reconstructive primary road, same year or the next year, they chip seal it. And I've been at a meeting where their maintenance superintendent said, on roads that we've done that to, I dare you to drive around and find a pothole. And so it's a pretty big statement. So it's something that as we're investing in these chip seals, we want to really look at extending the life of what we've just done to those roads.
Just real quick, so instead of doing like a full chip seal, if you're doing it so close after, what about a micro?
That's an option.
And it's less noisy. That's what the people complain about.
Yeah, the noise.
But I know it won't last as long, but I mean, but it serves the purpose of what you're trying to exercise here, isn't it? Just to put that additional seal on it?
Yeah, and we've looked at micro seals. There's
That's the spreader.
no, those are actually, they're similar to a chip seal. But the application of it's different. I believe some of those.
It's a cold mix asphalt on site, and it's polymerized, so it's highly flexible. And as it comes out of a screed box, it deposits 3/8 of an inch up to 3/4 of an inch. It'll fill any minor imperfections. And there's a chemical break that happens in the process, which allows it to be stacked higher to fill in those. A typical slurry, it's 3/8 of an inch. It doesn't matter. It follows the exact contour of the road. The micro will allow you to fill any minor imperfections or settlement on the edges also.
Just
And
like a
it's a
driveway
chemical.
sealer?
It's no.
I mean, is
No.
that how it looks when it's coming out? Or
It's
is it-
very, very black. Let's put it that way. It's the blackest thing you'll ever see on a road.
But is that what it, is it
But
a
it's
liquid
about
that
that
comes out?
thick. It's a cold mixed asphalt. So there's asphalt, liquid asphalt
Mhm.
mixed with aggregate, Portland cement, and some additives, so that cement in there causes the break of the emulsion. So the emulsion is a suspended asphalt in water, and when it hits, that cement starts to break the bond between the water and the asphalt, which then causes it to harden 5-10 minutes tops. It's ready for traffic, and then the water just kind of evaporates off after that. So it's a very quick process. We used a lot of it in Ann Arbor. We did it all over the place. And you can fill ruts. If you have rutted areas, you can fill depressions.
Less expensive.
Yeah, it's very, very cost effective.
And if you want to see a section of road, Garfield, Parsons Road, from Garfield to Airport Connector, City did that a few years ago. It was amazing. They just run down the road. Heck, they're doing it. So I stopped, talked to them, and they were doing it. And it's different.
Yeah.
Not to get off track, but I mean,
It's something that we're looking
if
into.
we're gonna ramp it up, we
Yeah.
want to do.
It's something that we're
more
looking
lane
into.
miles with that than the heavy chips.
Yeah.
Early on in the micro surface, like when it started coming about, there were some issues with it delaminating from road surfaces. Anywhere there was a skip line painted, it was flaking off. So but I think they're working a lot of those bugs out.
Yeah.
And it's different now than it used to be.
The microsurfacing was originally developed in Germany for the Autobahn because they put it down every 4 years, right down the Autobahn to maintain friction. Because it's a high friction stone and they just put it down continuously out there. You'd see them always going through because that's, unlimited speed. You've got to have a pretty exacting road. And so when you come in here now, we've got it to a point in the US where a lot of places use it. And it really does work well. It protects the asphalt underneath it quite well. As opposed to a driveway sealer, which is just the asphalt. There's no stone mixed in.
My question was, when it comes out, it's not coming out of the big thing like they use, but the
It
asphalt.
looks like a paver.
Oh, it does look like a paper, okay.
Yeah, but it's mixing in the screed box. It's mixing there. It's all
Okay.
being poured in, mixing there, and then coming out the back at the thickness that you decide you want it to go down.
Gotcha.
When they crack fill, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so if you allow Joe to continue, a lot of answers,
All right.
Yeah.
a lot of questions are answered in the very next,
Already.
in the very next slide.
I'm part of us.
I've got links here for the Minnesota study and
on those?
and the strategies for, extending service life. There's the presentations that were given. And then something is seal coats and fog seals. Those are not micro seals, but that is where we spray the fog seal after a chip seal.
We've done that.
We do it on our chip seals. We haven't done it on an asphalt road yet without a chip seal.
Right, so that bracketed isn't actually
Well,
active.
we've done it as part of a chip seal project to lock the stone in. We haven't done it where you just fog seal an asphalt road without the chip seal. So that's something that some places do. There's different kinds of seal coats. There's bio seals and different products that people are coming out with now that add asphalt volatiles back into to keep your pavement flexible. So that would be something where Hammond Road, Garfield, 3 Mile, South Airport, where we're locked in with curb and gutter and raising elevation of your surface is a concern.
So you're talking about conditioners now?
Pretty much.
Because I've been reading and they are not getting the best of the reviews.
There's others that are saying they're working well. And I know down in Wexford County, they've tried it on the shoulders of their roads where they'll just chip seal mainline and then fog the shoulders. And they're thinking they're getting great results from that kind of thing. So you're saving costs on your chip seal and you're still covering the road. So there's those kind of strategies that we should definitely start exploring. In particular on our higher traffic roads, something like South Airport where we just reconstructed it, it probably isn't the best candidate for a chip seal where, there's other things we can do, like different surface seals, but it's definitely an asset we want to look at protecting, but right now we haven't implemented the tools to do that. So, excellent. And this is just kind of the process that we work through, and we evaluate the road conditions, we review past projects and preventative maintenance work to see how it's working. We evaluate potential fixes like we discussed. look to see what we think would be the best fix for the road. And we evaluate localized issues and try and incorporate those into the project. We derive a project list. And that's all based off driving the roads, looking at them, coming up with what we think is the best fix for that particular road. We get a proposed budget, working with Phil and Pat for what we think we have for funds for the next year. Obviously for us right now, it focuses on preventative maintenance. And then we look at priority routes, traffic volumes, commercial traffic, criticality of asset, location to hospitals, things of that sort that we know we want to keep those roads in good condition. And early on, when we started this process, it was easy because traffic volumes dictated very heavily. Now, once you start working through this process and you get more roads that are in the good condition, traffic volume isn't always the best indicator. So the way that we rank these things needs some tweaking in order to come up with a different way of like projecting out and looking at how critical is it. So it's something that we're working on as a way to evaluate the priority list. And then once we have our baseline kind of list of roads and we kind of fit everything in by priority, preventative maintenance, we start looking at the engineering and the detailed cost estimates. So that's when we go out and we measure the surface area of the road for our chip seal program. We measure the lane miles of the road for our crack fill. Anything that's in an overlay, we kind of measure those up and figure out what kind of quantities we're going to need to cover that road. Look at what asphalt we should be using based on traffic volumes and how it was performing in the past. You know, are there issues with rutting, that kind of thing. And if it's a crush and shape, we start our full engineering process of survey and design. Once we've kind of got those numbers in, there's oftentimes we got to go back and look at the list and maybe refine a little bit based on the budget. There's things that pop up when we start doing the detailed review where you find a few bad culverts and you have to replace those, so the project cost went up a little bit. Some of that's looking at, you know, what we've reviewed and put in our GIS system and have condition rating on. So we're not going to go and crush and shape a road and leave a poor culvert underneath it. Then we're refining, preparing engineering plans, the estimates, and the contracts for bidding. And then once we get our bid costs in, sometimes, you know, depending on if things are up or down a little bit, some of those lower priority projects that we put out to bid, we might tell the contractor, hey, don't do this project. Let's see how the year goes, and that'll be the last one to go. We got to work within our budget. And then there's construction and managing the construction aspect of it and staying within budget and making appropriate decisions out in the field. And right when construction's over, about this time of year, we start over. We've already gone through and looked at the roads for next year. So now once we get time to start, once construction is done, we'll start going back out and measuring everything out for next year. This is just a map of the conditions of our roads. And it's just a good, fair, poor map. And it's something that we use to, we look at this to decide where we're going to go to look at road conditions. So if a couple of us are going out to look at chip seal roads, we're obviously not going to go look at the roads that are in poor condition. So this gives us kind of a way to drive around the county. We used to print this map on like a 36 by 48. And two of us would hop in the truck and we'd go look at roads and write on the map and mark out project limits and the fixes that we would do. And everything was written down on that map because it was the only way to really keep track of what you were deciding out in the field versus a list or something like that.
Those are on the horses.
And the process worked. It got our thoughts on paper, and it was a way to put it into a way to evaluate and look at the costs. But since we've kind of moved up in the world in GIS, if you want to go to the next slide, this is something that Larry created for going out in the field and evaluating projects. And what it does is if you don't have an inspection on a road, the road was turned red and we filtered out. So this filter was all the primary roads that are maintained by the Grand Traverse County Road Commission. And everything was red on the map, and you drive and your GPS and your tablet or your phone would follow you. You'd click on the segment of the road. It would pop up the little menu on the left there. You hit edit. You can type in your inspection notes, anything you're seeing. We've got the list of fixes that we typically do. If there's anything that falls outside the realm of normal for that fix, you put it in the notes. You assign your fix to it, and you say you inspected it. It turns the road green, and you move on. The next page or
It's like
slide.
a little video game.
Yeah, and this is what it looks like when it comes into Excel and you pull it out of the database. It's not meant to be read, but this is essentially what we were trying to create from the handwritten notes from the map, was something like this that we could evaluate. But now everything's in a database, and it all syncs from the GIS database right into your Excel. So if you go back out and you reevaluate a road and you change the fix, well, it updates the table. Next slide.
Now, is it only one type of fix you can put, or can you
We
give
have
it 3
12
options, like we can do 1 or 2 or 3?
Yeah, it's these 13 that are in there.
But when you're on that road, okay, we can do a chip seal, or we could do ultra thin.
You
Can you put either or can you just put one?
That's where we use the notes. We pick what
Okay.
one we would likely do, and then we leave in the notes, evaluate for this. And it's when we're going through the project selection, we keep track of those. And then from that database, this table is our cost benefit analysis of how we get to the most value for our program for the year. And I think we've talked about this before. But essentially what it's doing is it's multiplying the miles of roads that you have available for a particular fix with the number of years of life you can add to that road. So the idea behind this is, say we have 1,000 miles of roads. Every year, those roads age 1 year. So you've just lost 1,000 mile years. So when you go through your program and you pick your mix of fixes to improve your system, the miles of roads times the years added need to add up to more than 1,000. Otherwise, you're falling behind. So what we do is, this is in Excel off that table, and we have a solver, a formula that runs that. It takes the budget we put in, multiplies it within the constraints of the miles of roads available. So it's not going to say go crack fill everything, because we've only got 14 miles of roads that are available for crack fill. So what it does is it solves for the largest number of gained years by picking the mix of fixes. And that gives us a target. So when we go look, okay, so this year we should be targeting these particular fixes. The segments don't always line up with the actual number it gives you for target. So that's where you pick logical beginning and end points of your projects. So your final number that you've selected is slightly different than your target, but it gives us a really good guidance to know if we're maximizing our funds. And the years added, those are from experience, published from the CTT and other, like the Asset Management Council, years gained that has been done through kind of the statewide evaluation. There's a range of years for a lot of these, so what we've done is sort of pick the middle. Next slide. This is just a graph of the expenditures we've had over the years. Starting early on, 16 is larger because of the Cass Road Bridge project. And then you'll see some where they fluctuate a little bit because projects were delayed for a reason or held over a year, or you had contract issues. But what it kind of shows is how, when you start to leverage the millage, the MTF funds, federal aid projects, applying for safety grants to upgrade things, being able to put in for bridge projects, and having those matching funds available, you can bring in more through that federal aid program and really leverage those match programs. Some of it's matching with townships when they have partnership projects they want to do, and it makes our possible expenditures that much more. This is a graph of kind of where we were and where we are through the Good Fair Pro process, when kind of working through this asset management model that we've been using. Our 2019 data doesn't really match what's reported on TAMAC. Some of the reasons for that are if you go out in the spring and you do your evaluation before we've done any construction, you're not capturing that construction activity for that year into what you're giving to the state. So essentially you've missed that opportunity to report on what you've done. So when we do a chip seal, if the road was a 6 or a 5 or a 6, it automatically gets set to a rating of 8. If we were to crush and shape a road, it goes from a 3 or 2 or 4, depending on what it was, all the way to a 10. Overlays go to a 9. So when we keep track of all our projects in our database and we mark it complete, it changes the rating of that road. It doesn't matter if we went out and drove it and looked at it or not. It knows that we completed this project, the reset rating is this. So that figure there encompasses the end of construction season, everything was complete. The strength of an asset management plan, it provides an unbiased view of your current assets. It's numbers, it doesn't care what's out there, it is what it is. It's the ability to compare different strategies. Is what we're going to do going to make a difference, and what kind of difference is it going to make? And it provides us with measurable results of our mix of fixes, and we can evaluate those years of life added and really tie in something that is meaningful. It can help you provide attainable goals based on your projected data, so you can put in realistic budgets and see where you're going to be. And then it's a living document. It's something that changes every year, so it's always in process.
So you say it's an unbiased view. If you go out and drive it and you rate it, and Wayne goes out and drives it, and he rates it, and someone from MDOT comes out and rates it on a pacer, is that pretty consistent amongst whoever's looking at it?
Yes.
The
They're
guidelines for a 10 is a 10. There's no,
They
well,
have
it could be
guidelines.
an 8.
They have guidelines. There's trainings that you have to do in order to be certified to rate roads. When we go out and rate our primary roads, there's a representative from MDOT, there's a representative from Networks Northwest, and there's a Grand Traverse County Road Commission representative. And all three drive the road and agree on the rating. They've done quality control review of that rating system, where somebody will come from outside and drive roads that agencies have rated, and I can't remember what the number was, but it was a high percentage of accuracy. I think they were talking 95% same.
So there's standards. It's not just
Yes.
your opinion of what that road looks
No,
like.
there
You're
is
saying,
standards. It's, if you see this, it's this. If you
Okay.
see this, it's this.
You answered one of my questions, which is excellent, okay? But I understand MDOT, I understand road commission.
Networks Northwest.
Yeah, I'm still not understanding why we have somebody from Networks Northwest that we pay to do this.
We aren't paying them. This is paid for by the asset management funds. We get reimbursed for any expenses that we do for primary roads
From who?
from the asset management monies that come to us for. So when we do the primary road networks and we go out to evaluate them, that's a completely reimbursed cost. There is no cost to us
Where do
to
they,
do that.
is that CMC, is that what it is?
Yes.
Yes.
And where do they get their money?
Yeah.
That's part of the administrative, and I believe it was of the MPF.
Okay.
So
That money tree they pointed out to us.
Don't even go there. I just want to follow the money trail.
Moving rapidly along.
Yes. We could be off on another road real quick.
There's opportunities for improvement with our plan. It's refining our database accuracy, making sure that what's in there is actually accurate. Road lane widths, we can put in what materials we used on construction and look to see how asphalts are performing compared to each other. It's getting up-to-date traffic counts. There's a whole host of things that we can get in there that make it more accurate. And some of it's toggling on the switch that says we maintain the road. We get our data from the state, and sometimes there's some inaccuracies in it, so we have to go through and review and make sure that we're capturing everything that truly is something we maintain. We can create custom degradation curves, which would be looking at the mix of fixes that we do and deviating from that standard curve that's built into it.
And that's one of the reasons why the software that we have, where you can track particular problems, is gonna be real important.
Yeah, and it takes time to get those ratings to know where you're gonna be, but it is something that would be very beneficial to predicting.
The longer we use that software, the better our results are gonna be.
The longer we use it, the better it gets. It's analyzing, like I said, analyzing performance and materials. Did we use a different aggregate underneath the road, you know, a 22A or a 21AA? What kind of asphalt types did we have with the different highway mixes, or what binder grade did we put? What percent binder did we have in the mix, to see if adding more asphalt increases the life of the road? So is that added cost to your asphalt worth it? Different chip seal materials, if we're doing those, slag, track rock, limestone, the different emulsions, the hot CM90 mixes, or, you know, you can track all that and classify it and watch to see which ones are performing different. And that would help us refine our bidding and picking the best products. Starting to include maintenance department activities, which is, you know, starting to look at those roads where they're starting to spend a lot of time pothole patching, fixing things, and that would be a way of refining our criticality of a road. So on these roads that are in the poor condition, which ones is maintenance spending the most time on, and incorporating that into the volume of traffic to try and reduce our maintenance costs. And then, like I said, the cost to performance evaluation analysis, like cost of a project. So if we do an ultra thin or, you know, a couple different fixes that achieve the same result, which one performs the best? And if they're this comparable cost. And then exploring seal code options and keeping track of that. Next slide. And some areas where it's not working, it doesn't look at future traffic needs. It's as the roads sit today. We don't evaluate anything based on that, and we don't have right now a measurable way of incorporating that into our asset management plan. In local subdivision roads, oftentimes we don't look at those, and they're not a part of the process. And bridges, that's going to be a separate plan, but right now it's not incorporated in there. Those are costly fixes. Culverts, currently we just evaluate them prior to road construction. Non-road surface issues, ditching, safety hazards, you know, poor guardrail, all those kinds of things.
Like Michigan coming up and eating
it. Yeah. Low volume rural roads. Oftentimes those ones are going to be in poor condition, and the traffic volume on them, they're not going to get to the top of the list. So how do you address that? When you have something that just isn't going to make it off your formula, what do you do? And then gravel roads, those require maintenance every year. So how do you incorporate that into your road network asset management plan? Currently, we just look at our hard surface roads. So rolling that in and coming up with a plan. Excellent. So here's some possible solutions, you know, grants and other sources for future traffic needs, looking out, incorporating potential, you know, that would be making the decision to hold off on a project, knowing that you're going to have something come up that's going to require a more extensive fix. So would you do a chip seal on a road that you know you're going to be adding a lane to in 10 years? Probably not. You would make a conscious decision to let that one start to get in bad condition. Local subdivision roads, you know, there's the SADs that we've been doing. You know, something would be local township millages to cover that kind of stuff. You know, it's certain things that are kind of out of our control, but you know, those are possible solutions. Bridges.
There are townships in the state that have.
There are
many.
Bridge grants. You know, we look to bridge grants and federal aid projects in order to complete those projects and keep our bridges up. Culverts would be creating a separate asset management plan and looking at projects we're going to be doing. Let's incorporate those in our projects that are a ways out, or roads that, you know, that are not going to receive as big of a fix, or just like the crack seal kind of stuff. But maintenance, having maintenance crews, we can pick and choose and cherry pick which ones make the most sense for each department to be working on. Low volume rural roads, again, it's the township, you know, maybe some partnership with townships, township millage, trying to get those incorporated. the gravel roads. We have the partnership program for the gravel road program and the brining. And then there's always the hope for an increase in MTF, which is the Michigan fuel tax. That would allow us to have
That's a
more
funny one.
expenditures. And next slide. So that's kind of it for my part. If you have any questions, now's the time. And then Larry is going to show you some of the stuff we're working on and starting to incorporate into this with our kind of new technology. I showed you just a little piece of it that I deal with, but there's a lot more to it than that. So if you have any questions.
Yeah, I've got a few, but you answered the one on the pagers who was doing it now. So the slide prior to the total approved expenditures or approved, it was that millage target.
Yep.
Okay. I thought it was interesting. Does that correlate though to specific roads then? Because it's picking like the solutions and the lane miles that's available. Is it applying it or correlating directly to named roads?
Yes. So as we work through and select the fixes for those roads, they're in that database. So I have segment of road here to here, this fix, segment of road here to here, this fix. And what it's doing is in the miles of road available, it's looking in that table and it's saying sum all the fixes that are fix one. So it takes all the lane mile that are available to do that fix and it sums it into that column. And then it does that for every fix type. And then when we run our target budget, it tells us how many miles we should be looking to select for that particular fix type. So then we can go in and I have a column in there that's a funded and it's a yes, no. So there's a yes, no in there. And then the miles selected is where it says, look here, if this column has a funded yes, sum up the miles. So that's where we're looking at on kind of on the background, the traffic volumes. So we sort.
When does it get to the actual road name though?
Here. But it's on another screen.
If you back up one more slide.
Yeah, in that.
Yeah, that's your segments.
Yeah.
Yep, that's your segments.
Okay.
From there.
Those
No,
have,
but these two talk to each other, he showed me.
Yeah, that's
So-
just the raw list, and then that other is a summary
So
sheet of
what-
that list.
what you could
Then
do.
you have these pull out and you know where you're gonna do it.
Correct.
So when it's presented to the board, then, okay, here's the budget, here's the target.
Yeah.
Here's the actual project names by road, here's what we're looking.
Yeah, and part of the thing that, yeah, and there's different tabs in that sheet. So there's a summary list that says, if funded, take this segment name and pull in all the pieces that are funded for this particular project and list it. So then it gives you a list that's chip seals, crack fill, crush and shapes, ultra thin overlays, and it lists out all the segment names. And the way this works now, where before we had to go in and physically select in our software those projects and type in exactly what we were doing, this ties back to the database. So you could get a map created of where your projects are going to go as soon as you hit the yes button.
All right, so it's almost in the last slide, and it says where it doesn't work. I don't know if this is ever gonna go out to the public. I would recommend where it doesn't apply, not where it isn't working, because it is working. It's just not applied to those, right? Right? Is what I
Yeah,
said.
but in our asset management plan, currently, we do say 80% of all roads. So as we're focusing on primary roads right now to get our system up, which is part of the TAMSI and the Asset Management Council's goals that they kind of set for us. Our focus is directed at our primary road network. So how do we incorporate those into?
I would recommend
Some verbiage.
that it changes it to hard surface road on the one asset management plan that we're working with now. But like you mentioned, a gravel road asset management plan. We've talked about the culvert asset management plan. I mean, so I look this from a resident and a PR situation too, going, it is working. And we want to apply those principles into other categories. Therefore, it's where it's applied. So it doesn't apply. But the solutions are, and his are solutions to those other categories. You see I'm going with that? Is how you, it's all on how you present it too, you
This
know?
one I agree with you, Mark, on your splitting hairs, but you're right.
Well, it's,
That word
if
makes a
we're
big
gonna,
difference.
if we're gonna get down into the weeds on this, we might as well do it right, okay? So then that leads me right into this where you put the solutions for these one-offs, you might say, okay? Because I wrote here, what's our step outs? What, you know, when we step outside the asset management plan? Well, if we step outside, we're always gonna be stepping outside the hard surface asset management plan because we've got, you know, culverts blow out and we've got gravel roads that erode, and, you know, so, you know, how are we taking the non-scientific analysis and stepping away from it to get into some of the good old fashioned roll up your sleeves and let's figure this problem out? I know you guys are doing that, but
Yeah.
you know, I mean, you're applying science, you're applying your knowledge as well as, you know, the financial
Yeah.
expert.
This is a plan. This is at the beginning of the year, a plan. And it's how we come up with the list of roads that we're gonna be presenting as our capital improvement program for that year. Those one-offs that happened, you just have to kind of address them.
And I think clearly when we're talking essentially what is a preservation program.
That's all the newest money's going, so, right?
Right, no, absolutely. But there, of course, is a whole different cost range when we're talking about the secondary dirt roads or gravel roads, I should say, or the lesser used, or in fact, one of the 929 culverts that.
Silver Lake Road.
Or so.
That wasn't part of the
Right,
plan.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, right, exactly. That was what, $300,000 we have in it?
$190,000.
$190,000 for that.
Yeah.
That was surprise.
It was 110,000 months.
so then that rolls into, do we budget for some unexpected? If we don't, maybe we start thinking about that.
We do have additional funds that we always budget for unforeseen circumstances. Because they do happen, right? And so we do have that built into our maintenance, whether it be a local road culvert that blows out that our field operation folks can fix, or it's Silver Lake where we've got to get a contractor in. We've got that money built in as kind of these unexpected things. And we also have things that we always, as we're giving you budget adjustments each year, or in each, 3-4 months, whatever, and we're asking for budget adjustments, if we are running out of that money because, hey, we just had Silver Lake happen, now we need it, then we'll cut back on something else to make sure that we restore that funds in case something else happens.
Right now, Brad, is perfect. Because what I'm getting at is that maybe we shouldn't be cutting back on something that's been planned, because that's been planned and it's been strategized and it's gone through the formula and everything. So what I'm suggesting is that we have maybe Phil go back and pull back, the last 5 years, maybe what he can get of what have been each year's outside of the box fixes, and give us an average. And maybe we start looking in our budget, setting aside that budget money, and it's not, we can reallocate that at the end of the year or roll it over. But it seems to me we're always gonna know we're gonna have something, right? We know we're gonna have something, so we might as well just start planning for it so that the money's there, so that we don't have to pull back from our asset management.
And we do, Mark, we are taking that into account right now. And we do have enough money for 99% of what happens. This year was an oddball thing because of Silver Lake, because it was so much.
Yeah.
So when you have that Silver Lake thing, then at that point you say, okay, well, what isn't gonna happen, or what are we looking at? And it depends on winter. If we did have a mild winter, then we can pull some additional money off of winter maintenance and put it in. But 90% 95% of the time, you're never gonna have any issue with it based on what we have put into the field operations maintenance budget. And that's pretty much where that money would then come from, and we'd move it and we'd say, okay, they're not gonna do this type of work here and here because we're gonna put it into this project and we're gonna spread them out across other projects. So we always have a little bit extra that covers us based on our history of what we know.
Okay.
We had that traffic signal box, which cost us $50,000 down at Park. You know, that happened right after or right before Silver Lake.
Yeah,
So, you know, we
same time.
have some of that already built in. And very often what happens is just a matter of saying, okay, we're gonna move this money from here to here. You approve the budget adjustment to move that money from here to here. It doesn't necessarily affect the construction. 99% of the time, we're not ever touching the construction because of that, because we've got it built in to the maintenance end. And that would be something where we pull out of the field operations and we find it. And if there is something that we did say have, you know, $500,000 worth of multiple things that happen throughout the year, then we might have to go back and pull more. But we typically have enough built in to cover these contingencies that come up.
So you're talking like ditching and mowing and tree trimming and that kind of stuff are getting cut back, or
Well,
are you
we would-
talking what?
We would cut back on some of our maintenance of maybe gravel roads, or maybe we would cut back on some of our ditching for that the rest of the year. But we're not gonna cut drastically back on one thing. We're gonna cut back a little bit from everything so that the majority of our work is still able to be done.
System at risk.
Right.
Right,
Well, when he was talking maintenance, and maintenance is such a broad,
right, it is.
that's why I was trying to get an idea of what you meant by what
Right.
aspects of maintenance you're gonna be cutting
So
back
you're,
on.
so my, following this thread here, is that our contingency is to pull it out of maintenance as soft projects, not the hard projects.
Right, not the hard projects.
Right.
Because the hard projects, we are signing contracts with contractors to do this work. We've lined it all out. And, you know, as we develop further into our asset management plans, and we start developing that gravel road asset management plan and the ditching, and we start dealing with all these different things on different levels, now that we've got the GIS and we can start showing them, you know, then we may have to say, okay, this is exactly how much we think we can spend this year, and here's a contingency amount for unforeseen circumstances.
Well, I look at it as like those unexpected things are liabilities. We don't know when they're gonna come. And so we need to insure ourselves against those liabilities.
Right.
And so if you build a contingency fund outside of taking it out of the soft funded maintenance, that it becomes a line item, it's contingency, and we continue to do all our hard projects, we continue to do all our maintenance, but we have I don't want to say a reserve fund, but a contingency fund built that we put a little bit in each year so that we build it up to a certain level we're comfortable with, and we pull out of that
Right.
for these. But if
And that-
the board doesn't even consider that, that's fine. But I think we're in a position where we could do that.
And that's where fund
Unfunded
balance
liabilities.
comes in.
Yeah, that'd be
Is
the fun
because
thing.
we've stated that we're going to be pushing our fund balance a little bit higher so that we have additional funds above what your set policy is. This year, we were a little bit higher. Next year, we're hoping to be just a little bit higher so that we have that in fund balance above what the stated minimum is in case something really major happens. We
Well,
can
the
pull it
fund
out.
balance is to keep the doors open, the light on, and the people on the road when the state locks up and doesn't send us any money for 2 or 3 months.
I
mean,
think
that's
Mark-
what.
You mean a contingency like that?
Well, you know, I mean, that's, you're right, you see, that's
I
reality. of it.
I don't
So-
think Mark's way off base having a holy crap, the world just fell
It's in
apart.
this account or it's in this account, I mean, ultimately.
Well,
But we have a-
it doesn't get used. you
We have
see.
a fund balance policy, and if we're gonna raise the fund balance above the fund balance policy, that money should be in a different one, so we can keep maintaining that balance that we as a board have said we want the fund balance.
And if we had that money and it got to a certain cap, we felt comfortable we could
They-
maintain.
There are
then
some
we pull it
plus,
out, and do township matching jobs with
Right.
it.
there are different philosophies about fund balance, and ultimately, if you create a higher fund balance that's way high, or if you create a contingency that adds to the fund balance that we're already increasing, there are some folks who might think that, why are you sitting on money that could be used? And there are some folks, that of course will always think, well, you've got way too much money in the bank.
That's why I want an earmark, dude.
Yeah.
Because if
That's why I want
it's
to
if it's in
earmark
that account,
because it sits in that account.
it's not just money floating there.
Yeah, it
and
sits in
for-
that bucket.
And when you're looking at grants and stuff, sometimes that fund balance the amount of your fund balance will affect your ability to get grants. Green Lake ran into that, and they had money they were saving for things, but they didn't put in an account for things. And as soon as they put it into account for things, they started getting grants.
And
We talk about.
we
yeah,
can talk
but I
more about
just
that
think we
when we
need to
come
think
up,
about
yeah.
that unfunded liability and what we might be able to do to address it long term.
Bill?
I've gone through the process 8 years now, and it's always seemed to work out. I don't know that we need to look for a problem to create a problem to find a solution for, or vice versa. I mean, there's been years where, 5 years ago, you had a couple of culverts, I think it was in Whitewater Township, where the same road blew out. It cost a couple $100,000. I forget the name of it.
We did.
Boom, boom,
I
boom.
remember that.
Probably started with B.
And there's been other years where we bid the jobs out, the early jobs get bid out, and they came in way below budget. Gosh, now we got this extra money. Yeah, it's always worked out. We've had other ones where the late summer jobs bid them out. They came in really high, and we said, we're not gonna do that. So now the money that's allocated for that gets carried over, and it's there. So I mean, it's whether you're juggling 3 balls or 4 or 5, I mean, I don't we need to complicate it any more than it already is, I guess.
Can't believe I agreed with you and he's saying we're wrong.
I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm saying we have to, there are complex problems and complex solutions to them, and then there's simpler problems, or maybe the simple solution is.
Anything else?
I just thought it was ironic that I agreed with Mark on 2 things and.
A lot of
Bill
the-
just said, no.
A lot of the questions were answered as we were going too. I'm pretty set on the program. That's.
I mean, yeah, I mean, the only thing I would add is that back in 2013, when we put an asset management plan in place, I don't know if anybody else had one. We were sort of trailblazers in that respect. And that since then, the whole process in the asset management plan has been refined. And then when the bureaucrats in Lansing got involved, and they started to dictate that maybe we didn't know really what we were doing, and they had better ideas, and we have to modify our plans to match theirs. So, I mean, it's a constantly evolving thing, but basically the fundamental idea of an asset management plan and most of the things we put in place before anybody else did.
Right.
And we're still continuing, I think, to set the pace for it. And then to throw a little bit of cold water on this thing, none of this is going to matter much until November 3rd.
And
Or 20
Joe
days.
made the comment too, that the asset management plan evolves constantly.
Yes.
So what you adopt today, it can be changed tomorrow for whatever the situation may be. So it's not a hard and fast document that hey, this is the way it is and that's it. You've adopted it, that's it. Well, that's not how that works.
Well,
And we did have a commissioner that didn't want to do that because he was hard and fast. Well, no, that's not how this works. Situations change, deals change. So it's a living thing that changes and evolves. Just like you said, that 20-year thing keeps moving. It's always out there. So.
Kind of like free beer tomorrow.
So yeah, exactly. So, all right.
Anything else?
No, good.
Okay.
There's a
Shock, I agree.
kind of a preview of some of the stuff we've been working on to accomplish some of these things that we talked about
The
improving on.
software and that, it's great. It's a good deal.
Got it.
Is it Larry's
Yeah,
turn?
I just want to, I gotta share the screen with you here, make sure it works.
Yeah, coming in and seeing him. He showed me on his little tablet, all that, I'm like, oh, that's amazing. This looks like where we started, Larry. Are we going backwards?
There it is.
Pull you over here. So basically, through Joe's presentation, you know, there's a lot of information that we collect on each individual road, and each individual road's its own asset. And each individual asset, we try to get as much information as we can on this thing. We're talking about 1,000 roads. It's hard to manage this stuff. It's hard to wrap your brain around it. So you kind of had to compartmentalize a lot of this stuff by using things like GIS. I know a lot of people think it's just a map, but there's a lot of database or a lot of data behind that. And we ask it questions every single day, and we say, hey, where's this road? Where's a railroad crossing? Where's the culvert? All those different things. So we went through the process of basically bringing our data that we had in-house and kind of trying to modernize it into this GIS. And in doing that, we kind of find that, hey, we have some holes in our data. We have some things that we need to do. You know, we need to go out and inspect a little bit. You know, we want to think preventative, which is cheap, and try to shy away from reactionary, which is expensive. So a lot of times we talk about inspections, culvert inspections, road inspections, those types of things, sign inspections. When we talk about our assets range from, you know, our flooring in this building. You know, assets are everywhere. So we're trying to really, really obviously start at our roads and then kind of meander to our signs and our guardrails and all those things. But basically getting it into that database and making it geospatial so that we can see patterns and we can ask it questions, and we can send Joe out there and we can send Wayne out there, and those guys can make that decision. So
Are they seeing this on Zoom, Larry? Because I'm looking at that screen and I'm wrong.
yeah, hold on. Yep, you are correct, sir. Let me stop this share for a second. There you go. Better? Okay, all right, thank you. So basically, like I said, we are just starting right now. So this is the data that we have, the center lines from the Roadsoft software that we used. It's from the Grand Traverse County. We use some of their data. We've even coupled it with other things like we have all kinds of different data that's in here. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to, if it's going to let me do this, but hold on a second. Let me try to pull it over again. Did it work? Yep, it worked. All right, good. So we have all kinds of things like, you know, signs and different things. So when we pull in here, I mean, again, we have so many different pieces of data that that's soils, that's behind that. So we can put our soils behind it. We can put the wetlands behind it. We can put, you know, things that help us do what we do. But, you know, obviously we can do it a little bit easier behind the computer before we send them out. You know, again, we are trying to get as much information as we can and make sure that that data is accurate so we can go through and ask it these questions. You know, when was the last time we inspected this sign? When was the last, I mean, is it?
Well, that's a sign.
Yeah, and if you start at the top, it tells you all the details.
Of what it is. So I can go through here and I can say, okay, show me all the.
Sign says no driving on shoulders, how I'm reading that, is that correct?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and you can, I mean, it's endless. There's, you know, stop signs, all kinds of different signs, but these are, you know, MUTCD codes, which are, you know, the state of Michigan's codes. Obviously, we have some different other kinds of signs, which is going to help our sign department do what they do. This whole thing is, you know, we're going to have inspections on these signs that say, hey, you need to have a certain reflectivity and all these different things, and you need to have this stuff. So basically, this is a way for us to, one, get it into a database, two, make it mobile and make it, you know, available to any web device that we have, you know, tablets, laptops, whatever we have, cell phones. Our guys, we can send them out here. We can have them take a picture of it. We can have them do the inspection, and it will come right back to us in seconds. And we'll have that information instantly. And that's the same thing that Joe did on our roads, is basically go through and we figured out, we dwindled it down with that big old spreadsheet that he had. And we brought it right down to the segments. Each segment, you know, there's things that happen on these segments. Our guys go out and work on these segments. potholes happen on these segments. So there's just all these things like this thing is a living, breathing animal that we need to make sure we have really, really good information in so we can extract it out and be really, really efficient on how we get information.
Joe showed me they've got the 360 cam that we can put on the gator. We can drive that
Yes.
section of road. Can that be,
Yeah, I
in
think
this, we can see the before and after on a project, so that's all.
most of this stuff will allow attachments. So meaning we can put a movie to it, we can put a video or a YouTube, we can put.
So we do a project, we're getting ready to do a project, they drive with the gator ahead of time.
Yes.
And then they come back and they drive the gator after the fact and put that up. For, you guys took out my mailbox that was here. We can go back and go, no, the mailbox was never there.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so this information, I know there's a ton of information, and what we're trying to do right now is make sure that, one, you don't get overwhelmed with information because you don't need it all. You know, we're trying to dial it into what Wayne and Joe needs, what our guys need in the back, and trying to, you know, kind of filter through this stuff so that we can ultimately bring our work order management system in here. Because if our work order management system comes in and it shows us that this segment, we have 5 potholes, well, we have some issues. We got, you know, it might be a bigger problem than just us going and patching a few potholes. We might have to get with Joe and Wayne in the engineering department and say, hey, this section needs to be fixed. So
You can see on that, you know, you can see the paver ratings leading up to the reconstruction we did. And then even up above there where it says activity, it tells us what we did to that road when we did the work. So all that information becomes available for us when we want to evaluate things.
So, yeah, I mean, and this is, again, we're sort of just scratching the surface right now. We really want the information to be good so that we can do things like this where, hey, show me all the roads in Green Lake Township. Show me all the roads in Long Lake Township. Let's see if they are primary. Let's see if they're local. Let's see if they're subdivision. To dial this thing in so it's consumable for us, so we don't get overwhelmed by 1,000 miles of road. It's hard to manage something that you don't know, and you can get overwhelmed by it. So I come in with the software and all the kinds of different stuff, and we try to simplify so that we can really, really dial in our asset management plans, and then, you know, work also in the back with the guys that, you know, eventually we'll have some tablets for these guys to have on their, you know, when they're in the truck and say, hey, what township am I in? There is a potential so that we can go out and we can give a tablet to a guy and say, hey, all you need to do is go do this work order. We send him out, do a work order. He comes back. We know the road he worked on. We know the township he was on. We know the hours he spent doing that particular job. That's the ultimate goal that we're trying to get to. But we have to have this baseline built.
What does that pie chart show?
That is ownership,
The percentage of the roads. in our
percentage
system.
of the roads.
Is that the primary roads? Or is that all the roads?
That's everything.
Those are our roads.
It's every local and primary.
So just a rhetorical question here. If, let's pick one at random, Pensacola Township has 8% of the roads under our jurisdiction that we get MTF funds for, or millage funds for, or a combination of both, correct? Is that, they've got 8% of the roads.
Yes.
Okay.
And he's zoomed in now, so now it's just what's shown.
Interesting. So, I mean, we say the millage passes, we get $4.3 million. Do we divide that by 8%? And that's what we allocate to each of those townships?
No,
put it where it goes.
We actually had that
Put it where-
conversation.
Yeah.
And we agreed that there was never gonna be.
Just never gonna work that way.
When you just bring it up to them.
Just strictly a rhetorical question.
And what is other?
Other might be, you know, again, we're working through our database right now and cleaning up holes. And that's kind of what we're trying to
So
do.
you have to be assigned
Assigned.
to a township, because we don't just have like an area in the county is other, right?
No.
You know, you know, it could be anything, you know, it could just be.
Oh,
There are-
is that Area 51 of ours?
There are, you know, there are some things that could validly be other, because we have some of our roads that do sneak into Benzie County for a little bit before they come back into Grand Traverse.
Or would that be like
County.
the roads that
And they're all
we
ours.
share with
Could
another
be.
township,
Yeah,
another
could be
county, and we
too.
take part of it?
So there's a lot of variance, and we just haven't had a chance to prove through all of these things.
That's pretty much what it boils down to.
Well, you've
Just
been here
gotta
about a
take
month
time.
and a half, you should have this all nailed in.
Yeah, definitely. So this is, you know, we could use things like crash reports and things like that. This is a crash report for, you know, whole entire Grand Traverse County brought out of Roadsoft. But we can bring it in and we can, you know, make some sense of it again,
I could
try
try
to
this stuff.
try to really
Not
you know,
far off.
dial things in and realistically, like something like this, we can, you know, share. And, you know, that's obviously up to you guys, what kind of data you guys want to share out. But it really is something that now with the software that we have, we can share this stuff publicly.
Real dashboard stuff. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So like you can click on one of those and it'll just show just the dots of whatever it is, or the locations of.
I think well, I didn't make it that smart, but as I zoom in, it will only show you what's in the map picture here.
Okay.
So as I zoom out, you can see that the chart changes. And I can make it go the other way too, but I just ran.
I was just curious, like the animal, I'm assuming that's not gonna be as much.
It's
Well, that's why we have
the southern area is far more than the north, yes.
so many hunting licenses this year.
Yeah.
That, I just saw an accident the other night and that's going hoping to be. This is crazy. I mean, 3
Well, we have
times.
less there now than we did before, though, don't we?
I don't know. It just
Where at?
sounds like-
Powder Fairfield?
Well, it was brought up to me the last Saturday too. A couple of guys said, you know, what are you gonna do there? And I says, we're applying for safety grant. That's the roundabout talk there.
It should be a roundabout now.
Yeah,
it's
so
just insane.
yeah, we've talked about, I'm assuming we're still in the process.
Correct, yeah. When they open that up, we'll be submitting for that.
Oh, wow, we're taking
So-
over Bay City.
So here is one thing that I'm trying to incorporate here. It's kind of like it would be similar to like a C-click fix that we were kind of looking at earlier. But this is something that we want to incorporate. This is Bay Cities, obviously, but this is something that we're looking to have on our website. And you can basically go through and tell us, you know, an issue that we have with the road.
Yeah.
So, you know, here are some of the things that you could possibly have wrong with the roadway. Let me see if I can find one that has a lot. There's a few there.
And so they have something going on where people are punching into their app.
And they'll take a picture sometimes, or they'll try to find a good one.
Mailbox damage. There you go.
Jeez, I can't read it anymore. What's a good one?
4 AM, on opening day at that season, people want to know why their traffic's backed up.
No car.
Call it a Linwood.
Right. So everybody's going to the bay.
There we go. So that's a good one. So anyway, this will help us get citizen input, because obviously we can't be on every road every day. So if a pothole comes out, or if there's a tree down, if there's anything like that, this will go through and prioritize, you know, what we need to do. If it's a high priority, we got to get there today or right now, or if it's a low priority, hey, come out, there's a pothole, we need to patch her.
Will it map it out, or can we assign or have it so they have their tablet and it goes, go to this tree, this tree, this tree to maximize the.
Absolutely. Yeah, so all these individual, so this is kind of a comment, I can't read it, but there's, you know, they go through here, they tell them who you are, they have a phone number, they have an email, if they want to put it down, they can. And they basically just kind of tell them what's wrong or what's happening out there. And this is a good way for us to get information and kind of have a citizen input or kind of a crowdsourcing, really. But it's something that we're working on and we're hoping to get out shortly here.
So did they get that information from the phone call, like a 911 type of service, or did they report the address directly? Or
No.
if they took the picture, did it come off the data from the picture?
They basically went on the app and they have this on their phone,
And it does
and it does a capture of where they're at.
got it.
And if you.
GPS location.
If their GPS is.
You have to allow it though.
Yeah.
You have to allow it. And
Okay.
they take a picture of it and then they type in, hey, there's a tree down or whatever. Again, it's great information. They can turn into like a service request right to Jay in the back and.
Can you say we're gonna have this ready in a couple days? And does it then send an alert, like if I'm at my house, and I take a picture of a pothole, will it tell me that someone's on the way to take care of it? That
A
it's been
response
fixed,
is
or do I have
yes.
to look at
I
it?
don't think they have a response in here, but we're gonna put a response in
All
there
right.
that says, hey, we're on our way, or
Will it message me, or do I have to open up that?
you probably have to open up the app. I don't think it'll message you back unless we got your email. We might be able to work something out there. I've got to dive into it just a little bit more. But it'll have a status, reported or something like that, and just say we're on our way.
Closed, done,
Yeah.
sorry,
But-
not taking care of it.
But back to our asset management plan, I mean, this is a good way to understand what our road system is really doing, because we could, if we get into gravel, we get into, my culvert is, we have flooding here, we're having an issue with the culvert, those types of things. That'll help us kind of determine some of these issues that we have on our road segments that can help kind of have more information to make better decisions. And that's kind of what I have for right now. But again, it's just working with Joe and trying to make that asset management plan work with geospatial information.
I think it's gonna be pretty handy.
Oh, yeah. Trust me, it's already being used in-house quite a bit for different things. So we're already, experiencing some pretty substantial improvements in how we can gain access to the data.
All right.
Any questions on that?
Andy, anything? No?
No, all good. Thanks. This is
Yeah. Yeah,
promising stuff.
Yes, that is
I
very,
mean, really,
very. So,
you have to be.
yes, we are. B,
Okay, I asked this to be put on here, because Mark missed a meeting. I don't generally miss meetings. It's my fault because I did not read the email. I read the email after the chairman texted me and said, are you coming? And I replied to him with something very obscure. And then I went and read my email and went, well, if you mean that, no, because I'm 2.5 hours away. So, but it's been the practice of our former manager and our former board clerk that on every meeting that was scheduled, we received a calendar invite. So in the email, it would be an email, Microsoft, whatever, calendar invite. It would come out through Outlook or whatever, and then you could accept, decline, or, maybe or whatever. I'd like to have that practice be used again. And also, if there's, on a different manner, but somewhat related, if there is a time-sensitive email that, Brad, you need action, or you need us to look at something quickly, that if we could be texted just to take a look at our email on that, I think that would help a lot, because we received both of those prior to our current manager and board clerk, and it really kept us on track. And it really did. If nobody responded to your meeting request, you'd also know either one, it didn't get sent, or two, nobody's coming, But I think those two things would help a lot. Everybody's busy. Everybody's busy, But if we could go back to doing that more consistently or all the time, I as commissioner would certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, and Kylie and I talked about that too, and I think that was, she had talked to people to make sure what the date was, and I think at that point we assumed, because we said, yeah, does this date work? And everybody said yes.
Needed, but we,
Well, and understood.
And that's, I know exactly.
But yeah, and it's one, we definitely have every intention for us to be sending out all of them. And typically, like if it is something that I have that you need or that I need to talk to you urgently, I'm usually not sending an email. I'm calling you individually to say, hey, this is what's up, just so you know, here's what's coming. And I try to do that. And then if there is supported information, then I will include it in the email.
I'll give you an example on the text issue, is that we've had emails come in from residents the day of the meeting. And I know all the commissioners are waiting for bated breath to read their email, you know. But if, you know, you wanted to make sure that we all had eyes on it before we came into the room, that text would, you know, would just notify us to get in there and take a look to make sure we look at it. That's all. It would help you out, help us out a lot. So thanks.
But one other thing I would like to make sure is, you know, we did put as part of our policy here of having remote attendance to meetings, that any commissioner may be attending the meeting remotely. Below is a list of commissioners and their emails. So you may start seeing more emails from the general public. Now, if you don't want that on your personal device, fine. But we can also have it set up so that it goes to a personal device if you want to have it as an additional copy.
Well, I don't know if it's the proper terminology, but it's partitioned and, you know, it's sitting on the server.
Right.
So if anybody wants to FOIA the email, they just come in here and
Yeah.
take a look at the server. So
Right, we don't need to have, nobody would be FOIAing your device because everything is stored on a server.
That's what the reason.
But to have it forwarded or have it readable by you on your phone or on your own tablet, it's still gonna access our server, and that's how we would locate the information.
Yeah.
So if anybody's having an issue where they can't read it and they want to, definitely let us know, and we can get it set up so that you can. But that's just another thing, just because I know, you know, with us doing this, people are going to probably start sending you emails as part of their ways of communicating.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, they seem to find us before.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And we're there,
Okay, so you guys are gonna take care of that.
yes.
All right. Very good.
Thank you.
Last public comment, Kylie.
Any person may make an advanced appointment with the board regarding road commission topics for a regular or special meeting in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. If an appointment is made, the topic will be an agenda item. The following applies to public comments. Please state his or her name and address. Topics must be relevant to the road commission. Individuals are allowed to speak once for up to 3 minutes on a single topic, which may be extended by the chair. A group addressing the board requires a designated spokesperson who may speak up to 10 minutes. The board will not act on any item from the public that is not on the agenda. For remote access users, if you wish to participate in public comment, please raise your hand through Zoom. For call-ins, we will unmute callers, and if you wish to speak, say yes.
You have one. Okay, Mike, you need that. There you go. You should be good now.
If we're not already on the next road commission meeting, the one in a couple of weeks, I'd like to have the Lakeshore Drive issue be a part of the road commission meeting
For an appointment,
for an agenda item.
Well, it would be an appointment
Okay, whatever you call it.
at that point.
I don't think you understand
Yeah.
how it works at all.
Yeah.
So Mike, are you asking the board to put Lakeshore Drive on the agenda so that you can come in and address it with us?
Me or a representative of our group. I'm not sure. I want to talk to our group first, but somebody from the Lakeshore Drive Committee to address the board.
so that would be an appointment then.
Okay, then appointment.
Contact the office.
Yep.
Yep. Contact Kylie, she'll put you on the agenda with whoever the contact person is.
Will do. And when do I have to do that by?
Start tomorrow. Is our meeting is in a week?
It's next week, Thursday, so, if you can get it to us by Friday, great. That way we don't have to modify it, but if you just want it to be listed as Fife Lake, Lake Shore Drive and Fife Lake, we could put it on there.
There's a peninsula.
This is, no,
No,
that's Five Lake.
Five Lake.
Lake Shore.
Five Lake?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is Five Lake.
It is Fife Lake, yep.
Okay, sorry.
That's
So
fine.
at that point, then, we could put you on as just that, and then you get us the information of who's going to be making communication with us to Kylie sometime next week.
That'd be great. And I will get with Kylie. I've talked to her before about, give her some more specifics so you folks have some kind of notion where we're coming from.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. We have another one?
I do.
Go ahead, Larry.
Oh, shoot. Oops, sorry. Dan, you're able to speak now.
Thank you. That was, I enjoyed listening to that presentation. I just, one point on a personal level, I think I relayed this to a lot of you earlier this week. And looking at that program that those gentlemen are developing for monitoring the roads, I would offer a suggestion that there may, add like an other category or something that considers unique features of a road. And my kind of pointed comment on that is, we have high slope roads throughout the county that are, either abut water features or things like that. And so if they can incorporate something like that in that program that they're developing, that would be helpful because that would also aid in, preserving your assets throughout the county.
Thanks, Dan.
I don't have any other hands raised.
All right. We'll close public comment. Brad, anything? No? Bill?
Yeah, I guess to take something away from our meeting and so forth, I guess I've talked a couple, three things that have come out from our conversations and from what Captain Wayne. As far as Bluff Road specifically, one of the things that we've looked at and was talked about, we've talked about mitigation. I mean, it's going to keep getting worse. I guess between now and our next regular meeting, whether it's, one thing that did come out was Eagle says, okay, you can't go out into the water. You got to stop it at the edge of the water. Whether it's riprap or some device, sandbags, whatever. I guess I'd like to hear some specific ideas, I guess, or what's available to do some short-term mitigation, especially, there's a number of areas there where it's getting worse. What can we do to keep it from getting worse for ourselves and for the whole thing? I guess some certain amount of specificity. I hope we don't have to just go out there and drive sheet pilings or nothing. I think there's other things. Temporary riprap, permanent riprap. Put some forms out here and pour some big lumps of concrete, buy some. I guess I like to have a little better idea of what Eagle would allow and what can we do as soon as possible and what some of the cost implications might be to keep it from making it worse. So we've done a reasonable job of mitigation for ourselves and for the others. But I guess something with a certain specificity. I guess another thing too was, again, the coordination, the mitigation between one of the homeowners had said something, the association was talking about spending $40,000 or $50,000 of their own money to take care of their areas, and that we coordinate what we're going to do with what they're going to do. I think it goes without saying that we would do that, but just so even though it goes without saying, we're saying it. And then one thing I'm curious about, I guess, to look at a little stronger, we were talking about, especially that area to the north where the erosion has come right up and the edge of the road is starting to go away. The clay lens, the elevation of the clay lens, the sand below. I guess I'd like to take a little, or have somebody take a little closer look at that if possible. Is it strictly the wave action eroding that sand out under that clay lens? Or is it looking up on that hillside and the talk of artesian wells and flow? Is the water coming from inside, down that hill or in the peninsula, coming down, hitting that clay lens below it or through it, that we're getting a flow where basically it's not the wave action, but it's being pushed out by the force of the artesian well, possibly up on the peninsula. Is that feasible, is reasonable, and is it something we do, which might affect what type of riprap or mitigating circumstances we might have to take. And then the other thing is, we talked about a single lane road, maybe through there, just move the road over and go. I guess I'd like a little more information too on what are the safety issues, can we just stick a guardrail down there? How far do we have to be away from the abyss so that it's safe enough? And what would that really be? How reasonable is that? Can we really just move a single lane over 10 feet and let people drive down through there, even if it's just residents? And what would we have to do to protect that single lane from like the edge of the cliff? So I guess some specifics on some of those things that were talked about seem to be, there are other hot button items, but those seem to be kind of the short-term biggies that seem to pop into my mind.
And an access gate for.
And an access gate, whatever, whether it's crash gate for emergency, we put a combination lock on it. What are the options, I guess, for that, so that not just anybody can go out there, but the homeowners could be, and then they were concerned about emergency vehicles.
All set? Nope.
Yeah, sure. That's not.
You sure?
Yeah.
Andy?
I just want to say I'm really impressed with what you're doing there, Larry, of GIS and tying stuff in, where I came in and was talking to Joe a little bit, and he was showing me how all this stuff really quickly changed, and it's going to make a big difference on how projects are selected and how we can extend the life of the whole road network at the best cost, most cost effectively. If it works like Joe made it sound like it's all gonna work, no pressure, Joe and Larry. I think it's gonna be a great asset for the road commission. It's gonna really improve how quickly we can move our asset management plan versus trying to figure it out with pencil and paper.
I want to echo a little bit of what Bill was saying. On the mitigation thing, this really is kind of something I think is critical that we look at almost immediately. Because they did some work themselves in one section with the wrap and some stonework down below, and that seems to have stopped that there. Even in that area where I think it has to do with what's been lower, or at the lower level, I think that's been washed away, and it's undercut the integrity of the hill in that one spot. Even if we could drop something out that could keep the waves from eroding more of what's there, and it at least buys us some time to actually come up with a suitable fix, or the right price kind of fix for what we want to do. And I think that was something that the group that we met with Monday would probably agree with, at least if we did a little something. It may be, a couple of tens of thousands of dollars, to do something, but it could save us several $100,000 later, I think. And other than that, I thought that the meeting Monday worked pretty nice. I mean, it was good to go out there and actually kind of get a look, have our engineer there, and to discuss this with the residents out there. I thought it was worth doing.
Okay, really appreciate Commissioner Mauser and Commissioner Gilman's comments on this, because I think we need to be very specific, Bill. I think you're right, and get some mitigation going right away for the reasons that you spoke about. It's going to save us money. Spend a little money today, save us a lot of money later. I think, and also find out what's really going on out there. I don't need an answer tonight, but at our next meeting, I'd like the board to get a report on what OHM is doing right now. Where is the timeline? We saw one when we first contacted with them. The board hasn't seen anybody from OHM. Who is the contact? Who's the project manager for them handling that? And what's going on? I think we need to know who's running the show over on their side of the fence. What the timeline is of the phase 2A that they're working on? And what are they actually doing right now for the money? I think we need to know. So if we can get some update by the next meeting, that would be great. They don't have to be here, but if the manager can provide us and engineering can provide us a snapshot, that'd be well appreciated.
And we are scheduled for the 28th, is that correct? Of
Yeah,
October?
so in fact, Kylie's already got it, my staff report that'll be going out to you. You've got a spot in there that gives an update onto it. We do have a meeting that we are getting set up for on the 28th, that we will be getting the review of the environmental part. They have gone out and looked at the different areas, and so we'll be getting that update. So we do have that information in there, so.
That'd be after our meeting though.
Right.
That part.
Correct. But
So we won't have
Yeah,
specifics,
early
but we
this-
can give you an update of where they stand and what has been done so far.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they will be, Bill Zip, the project leader for this project, will be on our Zoom and will be available if we have specific questions.
For which meeting?
At our meeting on the 20th.
The next meeting?
Our next meeting,
22nd.
22nd, yes.
Okay.
So he'll be in attendance for that.
That's it.
And I'm gonna touch on Bluff Road too. I felt the meeting went very well, and I think at the end, when we started talking about fixes and all of that, the residents were receptive to basically anything, knowing that it isn't gonna be a total fix tomorrow, that it's gonna be a staged thing. So, so we can do some stuff proactive now and that. They were very gracious. I thought the meeting went very well. It really did. It really did. So.
I think once they figured out we're not their enemy, we want to help.
Yeah.
I think there was some communication issues up front, and I think once they found out we care.
Right. So I thought that went very well. So.
Move to adjourn.
Or
Done.
Huh?
Maybe. I might have to go out to Acme here. Yes.
I was gonna bring up
Let me send this guy.
I guess we need to, Cass Road, they let the bid on 2